After the death of a loved one, a path is carved out from that devastation that is the most terrifying part about it. Regardless of what you feel like doing, you must walk through it. The saddest part, and my truest word of warning to you, whoever you may be, the thing about it is, people self-medicate because of losing a loved one, and because the drugs have, become what they are today, they end up dying themselves. It perpetuates this eternal cycle of pain and suffering. This story doesn't have a clear red or green direction. Instead, overall, I developed an anger towards God, which pushed me away from the faith. I don't think you could go any further in one polar direction than I did. However, having had as much experience as I did before I walked away, or maybe it was the roots my family instilled in me in Christianity, or maybe it's because God hasn't fulfilled in me what his plan is yet. I'm not sure. But I can tell you this, here I am, back again full circle. Of the hundreds of episodes I already have written, this is the one that has the most spiritual impact on me. And before I even tell you the story, I want you to understand that the body is a vessel meant to house the spirit, and it is meant to be the temple of Christ. For either he resides within you, or something far more sinister. If you spend time at the bedside of a loved one dying, this one will make you cry. And if you knew my sister Jaime Keller, please share. The Birds and the Bees. This story isn't what you might think at first, and fair warning for the thousands that Jaime touched over the course of her life. This story is the one of her last night on earth. You know, the birds and the bees phrase typically being reserved for an awkward sex talk from your parents. This story begins with me being a 15-year-old in the bathtub, and the scare I got from my dad when he banged on the door frantically was most likely because I was doing something I probably shouldn't have, leading up to me believing that I wasn't in the wrong. No, he wasn't concerned with that. I can remember the words he spoke as if it was yesterday. In fact, this story and the details therein are burnt into my mind forever. Get out of the tub right now and get dressed. We need to go right now. Is it about Jaime? I cried out, but Dad was already all but downstairs, and he must not have heard. His urgency immediately became my own as I rushed to throw clothes on and leap down the stairs myself. Jenny and Dad were already running out the back door, and before I knew it, we were on the car on the way to Polyclinic. I guess Jenny and I were too afraid to ask my dad anything. Tears flowed down both of our cheeks as we held back audible sobs. My dad always had the oldies playing on the radio during Sunday drives, and Jaime had a lexicon of oldies memorized, which she delighted in singing. I'll never forget the song playing that night. Let me tell you about the birds and the bees and the flowers and the trees and the moon up above and the thing called love. I could almost hear Jamie's voice singing along with the radio, as if some deeper, more cryptic meaning to the lyrics existed. Like Jaime was trying to tell me that the song was about her, about this, about the wages of sin. We arrived and my Aunt Kit was already waiting outside, ready to walk up with us. Aunt Kit was a nurse and one of my dad's older sisters. She put in so many long nights into that hospital with my mom those last few months. There was always a sweet old nurse named Kay Bynum, who Jaime absolutely loved. Those three women will forever serve as an example of love and humility as they did everything within their earthly power to help my sister simply survive. Thank you, Kay, and thank you, my dear Aunt Kit, but mostly, thank you from the depths of my heart to you, Mama. I watched you when you weren't looking. I saw that you were human. Because if I didn't, I would have taken you for otherworldly in your virtues of patience, sacrifice, humility, and absolute bravery in the face of death. Aunt Kit set us down in a waiting room, and I didn't understand why immediately. Kay Bynum walked up to us, and I cut her off. Is she okay? And her tone back to me was one of true remorse. No, Luke. This is going to be your last chance to say goodbye. I nodded my head and sobbed. In that moment, she was so quick to pull me in and hug me. It's in these fragile moments that humanity shines brightest. Put yourself in Kay's position. If you saw a child about to lose his best friend and sister burst into tears, you would have grabbed him up to comfort him too. Of course, Kay pulled me in, and I thanked her for that moment 25 years ago. But I like to feel that this is a universal response to tragedy. Back to the story. I remember being led to Jamie's room, and she was a very pale, almost green color. I was used to the sound of the hiss of the oxygen, but it was as if the bottle was left freely open, and the hiss was so loud. One of the hospice nurses said it's up at 15 in case you were wondering. We're just doing everything we can to keep her comfortable. A feeling in my stomach of sheer horror began to well up as I stared at my mother, who was taking what at first I assumed was a toothbrush, but soon realized it was part of a kit for dying people. A sponge on a handle that looked like a toothbrush to me. I asked the hospice nurse, "What is that thing my mom's using?" She said it's so her lips don't get too dry. And it was at this point that I realized the act of licking your lips was too much for my sister, and that she was slipping away. I can remember my mom saying, "You know who's here to come see you, Jamie?" "Brother Luke," she acknowledged. I'm sure that she acknowledged Jenny too in some way, but I was so absorbed in what was going on that I missed it. Right after, I'd assumed my mom probably had been trying to prepare Jamie for what was about to happen. But she asked, "Do you know where you're going, Jamie?" And Jamie replied, "To see Jesus." And to me, that was exactly how you were supposed to act when you're around someone who's dying. Christians do have an obligation to save the ones they love. And my mom wanted to make sure she was going to be there in heaven waiting for her. I don't think I resented my parents for deciding it was not good for us to be there while she died, but instead the resentment I felt was towards myself for not finding a cure. The next morning, I remember sitting on my Aunt Kit's porch, and an open box of donuts awaited us. I was clearly in shock, and that was actually a good thing. Things got fuzzy over the next few days as I remember passively being around while parents organized the funeral arrangements and opened sympathy cards and read them aloud to us. Every so often I remember my mom or sister or myself bursting into tears, but it was just us. I'm sure that it was at the request of my parents, and again, I'm thankful for that. The worst was watching my mom in the middle of cooking dinner one night fall to the floor sobbing. I should have done something differently. We all rushed to hold her as she sobbed a type of cry I pray I never have to hear again. It was one of pain. It was one of a mother losing her baby. It haunts me now to revisit it. Tears roll down my face some 25 years later as my littlest son watches his daddy and wondered
why I'm crying.
But I wanted in the worst way to get to the end of it. So the most amazing thing was how many people were at Jamie's funeral. If you're listening right now and you were there, thank you. I've never been at a funeral with so many people there, and I doubt I ever will anytime soon. It just goes to show you how special God designed my sister. She touched people with knock-knock jokes, birthday grams, peanut butter cups, swear words, outbursts of cursing, in fact, at church, and she did so while dying in a manner that was absolutely fearless. There's nothing to compare it to, even as Christ himself felt forsaken on the cross. But that's how God works, you know. David versus Goliath. Through David, God was able to exemplify his awesome power to accomplish the impossible. God used Jamie in such a way that deserves honor. But I don't expect you to believe me yet. The Identity in Christ Chronicles isn't about accepting things on blind faith. No, rather, it's about examining the steps that I took to find my identity in Christ. Making observance of the times I did things the right way, and also when I didn't. Allow me to make the mistakes so that you, therefore, should never have to. I love you forever, sis.